Okay. This is Jennifer Brown from Jennifer Brown Constitutional Activist Facebook page. I'm going to talk about government concealment of black ops operations and how they contain and conceal such information. Many of those things many operations have been exposed later on in the years, but in the midst of while they are in the operations itself, media lies about it, or people say that it's a tinfoil hat, it doesn't exist, it's conspiracy, it's hoax, if it ever does get out in the midst of the operation. So that's just a typical Apparatus Monday. So with that being said, I'm going to talk specifically about Area 51, about the contamination of air, food, water, pharmaceuticals, anything that we ingest or rub on our bodies. I'm also going to talk about, and that would be through, anyway, so I'm going to talk also about the website called biggerthansnowden.com. Now, it has nothing to do with Snowden. It's just simply stating that the information they're revealing is way bigger than what you ever thought or dreamt of with the Snowden revelations. So with that being said, which I might add, whether you agree or disagree with what Snowden did, many spy device or the way that NSA, CIA, or FBI has surveillance on our digital devices in real time. A lot of information has come out on the different programs, the different apps that they do that through, and the different means or devices from which they are doing so. So that has come to light upon the Snowden revelations. But this website I want you to pay attention to today on the two most egregious things I'm going to mention is the website number one, biggerthansnowden.com. The other one is called the 2001 NASA War Document, or the NASA War Document Slides. It was presented by Dennis M. Bushnell, head chief scientist of NASA Langley Research Center, who won 2 patents and had 250 publications. Now, basically what I'm getting into is a lot of people don't understand how concealment or containment of these black op operations happen. Now, first thing I want to mention is that there's $1 million a day is spent on black operations to keep them afloat and to keep them going. Now, if you remember back in time, also, the existence of the Reconnaissance Office remained hidden for 35 years. The mere existence of the NSA program was mocked at. If you tried to bring that up and talk about that until Snowden came out, it got so large and so overwhelming that and unconstitutional with a lot of stuff that's going on that Edward Snowden brought that to light. The Manhattan Project was another thing. Those scientists, during which time they were working on such covert operations, were told, don't reveal what you're doing or you're going to go to prison, and or you're going to pay a $100,000 fine, until which time the news brought it out. Then they could come out and say what they were working on. So these things happen all the time, especially in government and private sector, because government and private sector now, according to Kevin Shipp, who used to work for CIA, stated that what they do is they sign secrecy agreements. And according to Kevin Shipp, now whistleblower from the CIA, he states that once you sign those secrecy contractual agreements, and you come forward later and whistleblow on that, you are no longer afforded the Whistleblower Protection Act, because within that, the bottom, there is a clause that states that if you have signed on to secrecy agreements with the government, you no longer are afforded the Whistleblower Protection Act. In other words, that Whistleblower Protection Act becomes null and void. So back to the fact that they're sinking in $1 million a day to run these black operations. So what we basically have now is the industrial military intelligence complex that are moving bureaucracy toward a dominion and control over the entire democratic process within the country, and that they are waging war on the people in order to wage a full spectrum dominance. Now, black or deep black programs that are unacknowledged, as I said, receive 1 million a day for its operations. Now, we are spending well over 1 million on these classified programs that have no congressional oversight, no public scrutiny. There's no mentioning of these programs, and number of these programs go directly through Congress and the Senate, and they just don't have a handle on it. This is where we get into the structure of secrecy. So as I was saying, we're talking about black budget, the deep black super secret unacknowledgement budgets that run into 100 to 200 billion dollars a year, and that's being conservative. So when you look and you see over the years through the Bush administration and other administrations, like the $2.3 trillion that just comes up missing, that's probably where these programs are going. Because mind you that they never find the money. The news never comes up and says, oh, we recovered the money. So we are spending... No, I already said that. Let me see. I'm reading from notes. The structure of secrecy is complex and multifaceted. We have been led to believe that we live in a mostly transparent democracy with the president at the top of the intelligence food chain. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. So with that being said, Senator Daniel Inouye stated this during the El Contra hearings when they were investigating Oliver North. He was one of the men on the panel. He stated a shadowy government with its own Air Force, and its own Navy and its own fundraising mechanism and the ability to presume its own ideas and national interest, free from all checks and balances and free from the law itself, is just not a good thing. So with that being said, there are intelligence secrecy that's truly, should be secret. That would be our military strategic maneuvers that we would use to go into or prevent war and things of that nature. However, when it becomes illegal, is when those military operations are covert in the means of which they mean harm to civilians, okay? Now, this is really relevant in that document I told you about earlier in the 2001 NASA war document that Dennis M. Bushnell, head chief scientist, that's the think tank that did this presentation, which was presented to 40 top heads of government, or the ones in the need to know. Now, the reason that I say that is because it's not necessarily, the people of certain positions that get to need to know. That's not the thing. It's the ones who will follow along with the program that are in the need to know. Dick Cheney would be one of those people. So what they have done is form an alliance with the private sector as well. Now, that gets your eye off the powers that be, okay, or the ones in power. And therefore, it becomes more fingerprintless, okay? The intelligence community is not an intelligence community, but a covert concealment community of black ops, or the USAPs. The USAPs projects are special access projects. That's what they're called, USAP apostrophe S. Now, from what the military-industrial complex and the private sector converse with one another, okay, and conceal. Now, the mainstream media is very, very imperative, or instrumental, rather, in concealing these things. They get their marching orders from the White House as well as the CIA on what they can and cannot talk about, And that can go as far as food, pharmaceuticals, or in anything in protection of certain corporations. Remember that government, private sector contractual agreements. Kevin Shipp says there's 2.5 million of those. But he said all in all of those who hold special clearance and those contracts equals up to 4.3 million within the United States alone. So there are very clear efforts to engage into covert programs and to keep the knowledge of these programs away from even those people within positions of constitutional authority. So, you know, that's the problem. So in essence, what they're trying to do is to stretch out the dominion of full spectrum world dominance throughout the world. So now with that being said, you know, the unacknowledged special covert black ops programs, as I said, are very secretive, and their concealment is largely helped by which the mainstream media helps to do that. Even if the mainstream media were to get a story, as Kevin Shipp stated, and it has to do with a military operation or anything thereof, or it goes against what their marching orders have been to stand down on certain issues, then they have to get clearance from the CIA on some of these things. The journalists certain journalists are actually required to contact CIA to get approval before moving forward with the news story. So this is why Americans need to not put so much stock and barrel into what they hear from mainstream media, and that's largely in part because of what I just explained to you. Now, let's go back to that 2001 War document. The 2001 NASA War document talks about several things. This is a think tank from Dennis M. Bushnell. Remember, it was brought forth to 40 different departments of DOD, military, CIA, FBI, Lockheed Martin, DARPA, and some private sector. So basically what this document was about is the takedown, of Americans. I didn't write this. This is not my ideology, not me thinking. This is what it comes from, the 113 slide presentation. It talks about how they're going to weaponize everything. Now let's talk about some of the systems that are already in place. It talks about how they're going to weaponize food, vitamins, how they're going to weaponize food, air, water, pharmaceuticals, and vaccines, or pharmaceuticals, same thing here, right? It talks about this in the document. It talks about how they're going to weaponize or use animals, insects, as well as planes and packages, as well as weaponize chemical plants, hazmat trucks, and nuclear plants. Now, if you look at the CIA, the rhetoric, and the things that have happened with Janet Napolitano, they're also talking about electromagnetic pulse being used to shut down the power grid structure, and that this boogeyman from over this continent or on that continent or this ISIS or whatever would be instrumental, or not instrumental, but would be the boogeyman who sets this all up. But in the NASA War document, it states that our military-industrial complex would be the one to use such weapons. Now, these weapons kill 300 million in 1 year. If used over a large scale to shut down the power grid throughout the whole continent, or the United States. They talk about how insects will be instrumental, livestock will be instrumental, and all these things will be weaponized. Now let's look at that. We've had anthrax through packages. They talk about packages. We've had planes go into 9/11. We've had Ezekiel virus from the mosquitoes. It was also brought forth, the H1N1 came from bird flu, and the mad cow disease. So have we had these things happen? Yes. So when you have 12 different slide presentations on how the media will be instrumental in misleading and misguiding the public on such covert operations, then you start to wonder, with all of those things, were you given the correct information when they said this is where it came from, this is where it derived from, and this is what it is? You can't really go with that, can you? So now, what I do know is that many of these companies have what they call fact-check sites. There's 45 of them. These fact-check sites range some of the most popular ones are Snoops, and the other one is Metabunk. Now, Snoops is a husband and wife team, which has been reported to, get handouts or payouts to side that the story is fake or conspiracy. Same thing with Metabunk. Metabunk will tell you that the 2001 NASA War document is false and not true. However, Metabunk is also run by a single man out of the basement of his home, so I guess he couldn't be influenced either by a sum amount of money to write up everything is false. So you really have to worry about where you're getting your information. Now, this is what the NASA War document also talks about, how they're going to weaponize food, air, water, vaccines, and pharmaceuticals. Now, let's talk about that. Right now, we have a lot of products that we rub on our bodies, such as powder that's causing ovarian cancer, deodorant which is causing breast cancer. We have several products in our food supply, which is EPA and Monsanto right now are in court fighting the fact that Monsanto was paying EPA to stand down. This came out from someone from the inside of the agency of EPA, and how they had known for 35 years that the glyphosate or Roundup, which is 10 times its strength of what we buy at Lowe's, they douse our food 8 weeks into this stuff, and basically what it is known to cause is cancer. So it's in baby food, oil, everything you can think of, everything, even the fruits and vegetables, most of it are have this pesticide spray or glyphosate Roundup sprayed on. It's one of the reasons the bee community is going down. So, you just have to do a little research. Now, the Bigger Than Snowden site, the Bigger Than Snowden site is talking about covert operations. So you have 6 from the intelligence agencies, 3 from NSA, 3 from the CIA, 5 PhD, microwave specialist or scalar weapons specialist, nuclear physicist, doctors, and others talking about how they're using covert technologies to cause harm to 400,000 Americans. Right now, today, started in 1976, and to date they have 400,000 targeted individuals. The thing that's happening to these people is that they're getting sick. They're getting neuropathy, bleeding on the brain, and cancer. And some are, this covert technology is hit at the right radio frequency, some are dying of heart attack. So this is happening to not just whistleblowers, and it's not just all whistleblowers like Alex Jones or Abby Martin or, it's happening to whistleblowers that are talking about things that they shouldn't be talking about, that they wish to not be touched upon, which is getting too close to probably how they're harming the citizens of the United States through these premeditated soft kill systems or other systems. In the NASA War document, it talks about how these scalar weapons are going to be used on an individual basis, causing bleeding of the brain, heart attack, and cancers. So with that being said, this Bigger Than Snowden website is very much so a very important thing. So the 2 things that are number 1 breaking news right now is the NASA War, the 2001 NASA War document slides, or the NASA War documents, and it was found on the NASA War document, but when they took it down because activists were freaking out, it was cached. So that's why we have the PDF format that was on the NASA War document site. So the other thing that I was talking about is the Bigger Than Snowden, the covert technologies that are being used against these innocent civilians. Now, some of them are babies, children. They're picking at random as well. Some are disabled people, elderly citizens, because they want to know how this weapon works on the different effects of different body types. And so that's why the number is so large, 400,000. Are there 400,000 whistleblowers out there? Heck no. There's a lot of whistleblowers, but not every single whistleblower is being targeted. So there it is. It's a really egregious program, both of these programs. When you look into it, you're going to see some really horrible things. Now, journalism could cover this, and I know you would rather hear it on mainstream media, but here's what I will tell you. When a journalist gets involved as a monitor or a moderator and asks the questions, those questions, number 1, are censored. Those questions, number 2, are only they're only allowed to ask the questions from which that producer of that news program allows them to ask. And if it hits too close on a covert operation, it's tanked. It's shut down automatically. Hence the reporters that brought out the fact that the RBGH, I think it was RBGH in the milk caused cancer, and then they had to rewrite the story 75 times, and the whole story was shut down. You can find out about that on YouTube. They made a little documentary on it. But yeah, so that's what I can tell you. This is really egregious stuff. It's horrible what's going on out there. But you want to know about concealment of geoengineering or chemtrails? It's called Project Cloverleaf. It started in 1976. That's the project name. Most of these secret operations or covert operations have code project names. So, just the information's out there. Just look it up. But when you look it up, look for inside agencies talking about it. Look for, whistleblowers from the inside. Look for government documents. Look for patents. I'm telling you how to do this. When you find information, try to find it in different formats from reputable people from the inside. Don't go to tinfoil hat sites. Don't do that. Get reputable information, okay? And quit believing that everything that you see on the internet is false. The CIA is the one who created the word conspiracy theorist. You need to keep that in mind. I'm sorry I went so fast, but I'm running out of time, so I just wanted to make sure that I got it all in. And we're in a horrible time right now. When you look at the Bigger Than Snowden website, you're going to see that we're right there where Germany was. History is now. History is repeating itself. And I cannot stress to you how bad it is right now. Look at the 2001 NASA War document slides. There's 113 of them. You can start with page 113. Page 3 shows all the agencies that Dennis M. Bushnell presented that slide presentation to, all of which are within the government. Thank you for your time today. Please consider what's going on in our country. If you have a concern at all and care about the well-being of your kids or family, those around you, your loved ones, then you will look into these documents. You will get your head out of the sand and have an open mind to at least look at the documents. When I say look, read each and every slide. When they talk about nanosims, bio means inside the body. Nanosims, nanotechnology is all microscopic technology. So those are some acronyms you will need to know about. Aerosol means geoengineering. They don't use geoengineering term, they use aerosol. They don't say aerosol spring, but they use aerosol. So aerosol in the 2001 NASA War document means geoengineering. So they plan on bringing the banks down, shutting down the bank systems, running the waterways. They have a lot of things in plan for someone, but it's someone in some country, and it ain't going to be good. And even at that, you can't do all those egregious things to any other country. It would be against the not Geneva Convention, but the United Nations and other international groups. So it's really worth taking a look at. And so thank you again. I appreciate your time. Peace out.